The degrowth model is predicated on the idea that, well, let's lay out the ideas, that really there are too many people on the planet, and the people who are there now, especially the rich ones, are consuming far too many resources per capita. And so the only way forward to a sustainable planet is through degrowth. Okay, so let's take that apart. First of all, who's going to impose that degrowth? Like, can you imagine the totalitarian state that would have to be built in order for every single one of your purchases to be monitored, which is really what the plan is in some real sense? I mean, that's just a terrible, nightmarish vision of petty tyranny everywhere, where every single move you make is analyzed in terms of its overall planetary consequence, and only calculated by people who do not have your best interests in mind, by the way. But worse than that is that there isn't any evidence whatsoever that if you use this strategy of degrowth and you make people poor, that you're going to get anything approximating the beneficial effect that you propose. I mean, let's look at how this is already playing out. So we have this reflexively anti-capitalist notion in the West often that lurks at the bottom of some of the metaphorical realms that we've been discussing, that there's something suspect about wealth. But the thing about wealth is that if you use it ethically, it's life more abundant. If you use that ethically, then part of the utility in gathering wealth is that hypothetically you can go, well, first of all, make more wealth with it, but you can do good things with it. And so it isn't like Scrooge McDuck luxury in the money bin that we're talking about here. It's the opportunity to make things better for people. Now, the other thing we wrote about in that op-ed, you just talked about the education front. Maybe we can close with this next proposition. And by the way, for those of you listening and watching, this is just one of many, although Bjorn's done a very good job of trying to rank order these in terms of, well, let's do the cheap and easy things first. We might as well hit the ball out of the park, at least in the places we can. And
we've gone from a world over the last 100 years. In 1928, we estimate about 2/3 of the whole world was deficient in food. So basically we were starving. 2/3 of us were starving. Today, that number is down below 10%, but that's still very high. That's still about 800 million people. So there's still a big problem. Again, we can have diminishing problems and still want to do something about it. How do you fix this? Well, in the long run, you actually need to get much better productivity in agriculture, and we have some other solutions for that. But it turns out just giving out lots and lots of food is not only very expensive because you actually have to distribute it, it also typically destroys local agriculture. You know, if you give out all the food, then they don't have any incentive to produce it next year, and you actually end up very easily make more problems. The point here is not that this is what you should be doing, but it's one of the many things that you could choose and say, look, I want to do something that actually matters and that has huge impact, rather than just go with, oh my God, the world is terrible, and then I'm just going to give up, or I'm just going to go for these cheap, easy virtue signaling. This is about, there are a lot of technologies, there are a lot of innovations where we can actually make a lot of good at very low cost, very effectively. Isn't that what we should be doing for 2023?
We started by talking about the underlying metaphysic or even theology of the current worldview, and laid out the proposition that we tend to insist that young people see the planet as a fragile virgin and culture as a rapacious predator and the individual as a parasitic predator, and that has its echoes in the a priori religious landscape, but that it's a very one-sided story. And the corrective to that story is, well, nature can be pretty damn hard on us and needs to be tamed and controlled in a manner that's sustainable. We should be extremely grateful for what our culture has provided us with, not least the ability to look at nature as though it was benevolent. And we shouldn't be so damn hard on individual people, because for all their flaws, they can be Norman Borlaug, for example, or the people who worked along with them, who are genuinely contributing not only to a much more productive and generous economy, but also doing that in a manner that's beneficial on the environmental front. And so we need to balance our viewpoint, and we need to stop terrifying young people into apocalyptic nightmares by insisting that the world is going to collapse and that all the power should be given to like terrified, centralized tyrants.